The collision. The coffee splattered across my white blouse in a magnificent arc, creating a Jackson Pollock-esque masterpiece that would have been impressive if it weren't ruining my favorite shirt. I stood frozen on the corner of Fifth Avenue and 42nd Street, mouth agape, staring at the tall stranger who just crashed into me while apparently racing to catch the light. Oh my God, I am so sorry. The man's voice was deep, genuinely panicked. He had dark hair that fell slightly over his forehead, intense green eyes, and a jaw that looked like it had been carved by an overly ambitious sculptor. I wasn't looking where I was going. Here, let me. He started dabbing at my shirt with a napkin, which only made things worse, spreading the coffee stain further across the fabric. I grabbed his wrist instinctively. Stop. You're making it worse. Our eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to do that annoying thing it does in romantic comedies. Slow down just enough to make everything feel significant. His hand was warm under mine, and I noticed he smelled like cedar and something else I couldn't quite place. Cinnamon, maybe? I'll pay for the dry cleaning. Or buy you a new shirt. Or both. He pulled out his wallet with his free hand, fumbling slightly. I'm really not usually this clumsy. My mom is in the hospital, and I was trying to get there before visiting hours end. And the irritation that had been building in my chest deflated instantly. Is she okay? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed habitual. Hip surgery. She's fine, just. She gets anxious if I'm not there. She worries. I looked down at my ruined blouse, then back at his face. He looked genuinely distressed. And not just about the coffee situation. There were shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't been sleeping well. It's fine. Really? Go see your mom. I started to walk away, but he caught my arm gently. Wait. At least let me get your information so I can make this right. I should have just kept walking. I had a presentation in 45 minutes. My shirt was destroyed, and I was already having a terrible day. But something about the way he looked at me, earnest, apologetic, and oddly vulnerable, made me pause. Emma Richardson, I said, pulling out one of my business cards from my bag. But you really don't need to. Liam Hartley. He took the card, studying it carefully. Marketing director at Crawford and Associates. Impressive. It sounds more impressive than it is, I said, checking my watch. Look, I really need to go. Good luck with your mom. I hurried away before he could say anything else, ducking into the nearest store to buy a blazer that would cover the stain. As I stood in the dressing room buttoning up the navy jacket, I realized I was smiling slightly, which was ridiculous. The man had ruined my shirt and made me late. There was absolutely nothing smile-worthy about that. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I know this is forward, but let me take you to dinner to apologize properly. Tomorrow night? Liam, the coffee criminal. I stared at the message for a long moment. I'd given him my business card, which had my work email, not my cell number, which meant he'd had to look me up, find the company directory, and somehow get my personal number. That should have been creepy. Somehow, it wasn't. Against every ounce of my better judgment, I typed back. Tomorrow at 7. But only if your mom is okay. She's already flirting with the nurses and demanding better food. I'll pick you up at your office. Where's something you won't mind me destroying with beverages? I laughed out loud in the dressing room, earning a strange look from the attendant outside. The first date, or apology dinner. Liam showed up at exactly 7 p.m. the next evening, holding a single sunflower and wearing a nervous smile that made him look younger than I'd initially thought. Maybe late 20s, early 30s at most. I read online that sunflowers mean adoration and loyalty, he said as I approached him in the lobby. But also that they mean, I'm sorry, I'm a complete disaster of a human being, which seemed appropriate. I don't think that's what they mean, I said, taking the flower. It was perfect, bright, cheerful, unpretentious. But I appreciate the sentiment. He'd chosen a small Italian restaurant in the West Village, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. It was charming without being trying too hard charming, which I appreciated. So, he said once we'd ordered, tell me about Emma Richardson, marketing director extraordinaire. What brings you to New York? A job, originally. I'm from Ohio, small town called Millfield that you've definitely never heard of. Came here 5 years ago for an entry-level position and clawed my way up. I took a sip of wine. Very exciting, I know. Actually, yes. What made you want to leave Millfield? Most people didn't ask that question. They assumed everyone wanted to come to New York. My mom died when I was 22. Cancer. After that, everything in that town felt heavy, like I was walking around wearing her ghost. I needed to go somewhere where I could be someone new. I hadn't meant to say that. It was only a first date. Not even a real date. Just an apology dinner. But something about Liam's attentive silence made the words spill out. I'm sorry, he said quietly. That must have been incredibly difficult. What about you? Native New Yorker? Born and raised in Brooklyn. My mom still lives in our childhood home in Park Slope. My dad passed away when I was 15, heart attack, so it's just been me and her ever since. He smiled slightly. She's the reason I'm still here, honestly. I got a job offer in Seattle 2 years ago. Better pay, better position, everything. But I couldn't leave her. What do you do? I'm an architect, residential design mostly. I help people build their dream homes, which is simultaneously the most rewarding and most frustrating job imaginable. People have very specific visions that don't always align with, physics. I laughed. That sounds familiar. I help companies build their brand visions, which also often don't align with reality. The conversation flowed easily, surprisingly so. We talked about everything, our worst jobs, his. Working at a movie theater in high school where someone once vomited directly on his shoes. Mine. Telemarketing for a sketchy vacation timeshare company. Our irrational fears, his. Pigeons. Mine. Escalators. Our secret talents, his. He could solve a Rubik's Cube in under a minute. Mine. I could recite the entire opening monologue from The Lion King. Prove it, he challenged. So there, in the middle of this cozy Italian restaurant, I recited the entire circle of life opening in my best David Attenborough impression, complete with hand gestures. Liam laughed so hard he nearly knocked over his wine glass. You're absolutely ridiculous, he said, still grinning. You challenged me. I know. It was the best decision I've made all week. The dinner stretched into 3 hours. Then we walked through the village, past the brownstones and the tiny shops that sold vintage records and handmade jewelry. We ended up in Washington Square Park, watching a street musician play guitar while the fountain sprayed water in cheerful arcs behind him. Can I be honest about something? Liam asked as we sat on a bench, the spring air cool but pleasant. Please. I didn't actually need to look that hard to find your number. You mentioned Crawford and Associates, and there are only 3 Emma Richardsons in the company directory. I called all 3 until I got the right one. I raised an eyebrow. That's either dedicated or stalker-ish. I haven't decided which. Probably a bit of both, he admitted. But I couldn't stop thinking about you. Which sounds insane because we met for literally 90 seconds while I was destroying your clothing. But there was something about the way you looked at me when I told you about my mom, like you actually cared about a stranger's problems. My heart did a weird stuttering thing in my chest. I did care. I know. That's what I couldn't stop thinking about. You walked me home that night, all the way to my apartment in Chelsea. At my door, there was a moment, one of those moments where you can feel the potential energy hanging in the air, where a first kiss seems both inevitable and terrifying. But Liam just smiled, squeezed my hand gently, and said, I'd really like to see you again, Emma Richardson. I'd like that too, Liam Hartley. The whirlwind. Our second date happened 3 days later. Then there was a fourth date 2 days after that. By the end of the month, we were seeing each other every other day, fitting into each other's lives like puzzle pieces that had been cut from the same board. Liam introduced me to his mother, Patricia, on our 6th date. She was exactly as he described, warm, funny, and absolutely delighted that her son had finally met someone who wasn't boring as toast, which I learned was her harshest criticism. So, Emma from Ohio, she said as we sat in her kitchen drinking tea from delicate china cups. What are your intentions with my boy? Mom. Liam looked mortified. What? It's a fair question. He's clearly smitten. Look at him, he can't stop smiling like an idiot. I glanced at Liam, who was indeed smiling like an idiot. It made my chest warm. I like him a lot, Mrs. Hartley. He's kind funny, and he hasn't spilled coffee on me since our first meeting, which I consider a major achievement. Patricia laughed, a sound like wind chimes. Oh, I like you. You're a keeper, this one, she said to Liam. As we left that evening, Liam apologized profusely for his mother's directness. Don't apologize, I said. She's wonderful. She reminds me of my mom, actually. Same kind of fearless honesty. He stopped walking and turned to face me. Really? Really? My mom used to say that life was too short for polite lies. She'd have liked your mom. Liam kissed me then, right there on the Brooklyn street, with the brownstones watching and the spring flowers blooming in window boxes above us. It was soft and sweet and perfect, and when we pulled apart, I was breathless. I'm falling for you, he whispered against my lips. Is that crazy? It's only been a month. Completely crazy, I agreed. I'm falling for you too. The next 3 months were a blur of happiness. We spent weekends exploring the city, finding hidden gardens in Queens, eating our way through food markets in Brooklyn, getting lost in Central Park on purpose just to find our way back together. Liam brought me coffee every morning before work, learning exactly how I liked it. 2 creams, 1 sugar, extra hot. I started keeping a toothbrush at his apartment, then clothes, then half my life. And just like that, against all logic and Rachel's concerned warnings, I said yes. The proposal. Moving in together was an adjustment. Suddenly, all the little quirks that had seemed charming became daily realities. Liam was obsessively neat in some ways. Dishes had to be done immediately, beds made every morning, and completely chaotic in others. He left his architectural drawings everywhere, covered in coffee rings and pencil smudges. I learned that he was grumpy before his first cup of coffee, and that he sang off key in the shower. He learned that I hogged the blankets, and that I needed at least 30 minutes of quiet time when I first got home from work. But we navigated it. We created rhythms and routines. Sunday morning bagel runs, Wednesday night movie marathons, Friday dinners with Patricia, who'd fully adopted me as her daughter-in-law in waiting. Rachel remained skeptical but supportive. "Just promise me you won't do anything crazy like get married after 6 months," she said. "Of course not," I assured her. "We're taking things at a reasonable pace now." The proposal came on our 8-month anniversary. Liam had planned an elaborate scavenger hunt across the city, with clues that referenced moments from our relationship. The first clue led me to the corner of 5th Avenue and 42nd Street, where we'd first met. A street musician was playing our song, "Can't Help Falling in Love," which Liam had apparently hired for this specific purpose. The next clue took me to the Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. The owner handed me a sunflower with another note attached. Then Washington Square Park, where a painter had been commissioned to create a portrait of us based on a photo Liam had taken. The final clue brought me to the rooftop of his apartment building, which had been transformed into something magical. String lights hung everywhere, candles flickered in glass jars, and rose petals created a path to where Liam stood, wearing a suit and the most nervous smile I'd ever seen. "Emma Richardson," he said as I approached, taking my hands in his. "8 months ago, I quite literally ran into you. Best accident of my life. You've made me happier than I knew it was possible to be. You've made me want to be better, do better, love better. I don't want to spend another day without knowing that you'll be mine forever." He dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, not enormous or ostentatious, but perfect. A princess-cut diamond set in a vintage gold band with tiny emeralds on either side. "Will you marry me?" I should have hesitated. I should have thought about Rachel's warnings, about how we'd only known each other for 8 months, about how this was all moving so fast. But looking at Liam's face, hopeful, vulnerable, full of love, I couldn't imagine saying anything but yes. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring on my finger, stood, and kissed me like we were the only 2 people in the world. From somewhere nearby, I heard Patricia whooping and applauding. Liam had invited her to watch from a distance. "Did you really think I'd miss this?" she said, coming over to hug us both. "Welcome to the family, officially." That night, as we lay in bed, I stared at the ring on my finger. "Do you think we're crazy?" I asked Liam. "Probably," he admitted. "But the best things in life are a little crazy, don't you think?" I wanted to believe that. I really did. The cracks began to show. Wedding planning revealed sides of Liam I hadn't seen before. He had opinions, strong ones, about everything from the color of the tablecloths to the font on the invitations. And when his opinions weren't respected, he got tense. "I just think ivory looks cheap," he said when I showed him invitation samples. "Can't we do a cream? Or even white?" "Liam, they're basically the same color." "They're not, though. Ivory has this yellow undertone that looks dingy." "I'm an architect, Emma. I know about color theory." It was such a small thing, but it rubbed me wrong. Still, I changed the invitations to cream. Then there was the venue issue. I wanted something small and intimate, maybe a restaurant with a private room or a garden somewhere. Liam wanted the Pierre Hotel. "It's where my parents got married," he explained. "It would mean a lot to my mom." "But it's so expensive, Liam, and so formal. That's not really us." "What's us, exactly?" "We can't have our wedding in a coffee shop where we might spill things." The joke felt pointed, mean even. I let it go. The fight started small and escalated. About the guest list. He wanted to invite distant relatives I'd never met. About the timeline. He wanted to get married in 3 months. I wanted at least 6 to plan properly. About money. He insisted on paying for everything, which made me feel uncomfortable and dependent. "Why can't you just let me do this for us?" he asked during one particularly heated argument. I make more money than you do. This isn't some feminist statement. It's just practical. It's not about feminism. It's about partnership. I don't want to feel like you're buying me. That's ridiculous. I'm not buying you. I'm marrying you. Then let me contribute equally. He sighed, running his hand through his hair in that gesture that used to seem endearing and now seemed dismissive. Fine. We'll split everything 50-50. Happy. But I wasn't happy. Something felt off, like we were playing roles instead of being ourselves. Rachel noticed during one of our girls' nights. Are you okay? You seem stressed. Wedding planning is just a lot, I said, downing more wine than I should. Liam and I keep fighting about stupid stuff. Like what? I told her about the invitations, the venue, the money arguments. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Have you guys talked about the big stuff? Like, really talked about it? What do you mean? Kids, career goals, where you want to live long term, how you handle money. What happens if one of you gets sick or loses a job? The real stuff that matters in a marriage. I realized, with a sinking feeling, that we hadn't. Not really. We talked about loving each other, about wanting to be together, about the wedding itself, but we hadn't discussed the actual marriage. That night, I tried to bring it up with Liam. Hey, can we talk about some future stuff? Like bigger picture things? He was working on a project, blueprints spread across our dining table. Sure. What's up? Do you want kids? He glanced up, surprised. Eventually, yeah. Don't you? I don't know. Maybe? I haven't really decided. Well, we have time to figure it out. He went back to his blueprints. But what if I decide I don't want them? Would that be a deal breaker? Now I had his full attention. Are you saying you don't want kids? I'm saying I don't know. And I think we should talk about it before we get married, not after. Liam set down his pencil, and I saw frustration flash across his face. Emma, we're getting married in 2 months. You're bringing this up now? Better now than never, right? I guess I just assumed we were on the same page about this stuff. We've never actually discussed it. The conversation devolved into another fight, our third that week. Liam said I was overthinking everything, that I was letting wedding stress make me neurotic. I said he was being dismissive, that these were legitimate concerns. We went to bed angry that night, a wall of space between us. The bachelor and bachelorette parties. My bachelorette party was supposed to be fun. Rachel had planned a weekend in Miami, beach, clubs, cocktails, the works. But I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in my chest. You're having second thoughts, Rachel said on our second night, as we sat on the beach with drinks, watching the sunset. I love him, I said automatically. That's not what I asked. I dug my toes into the sand, feeling the grains shift beneath them. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I don't actually know him. Like, I know surface Liam, the guy who brings me coffee and makes me laugh. But deeper Liam? The one who makes big decisions and handles stress. That guy is kind of a stranger. It's not too late to pump the brakes some. Maybe postpone the wedding, do some couples counseling. We've sent out invitations, booked the venue. His mom is so excited. I can't just. Yes, you can. If you're not sure, you can absolutely stop this train. But the idea of canceling felt impossible. How would I explain it to Liam? To Patricia? To everyone who'd already RSVP'd and booked hotels. Meanwhile, Liam's bachelor party was happening in Vegas. He texted sporadically, photos of him and his friends at casinos, clubs, shows. In one photo, there was a woman next to him. Beautiful blonde, her hand on his arm. I told myself I was being paranoid. It was a bachelor party. There would be women around. It didn't mean anything. But when he came back, something was different. He was distant, distracted. He'd always been affectionate, touching me constantly, pulling me close, kissing me randomly. Now he seemed to barely notice I was there. How is Vegas? I asked. Fine. Fun. The usual bachelor party stuff. Who was the blonde in your photo? He looked up sharply. What? There was a blonde woman in one of the photos your friend posted. She had her hand on your arm. Jesus, Emma. Are you seriously doing this right now? It was nothing. Some random girl at the club. I don't even remember her name. I wasn't accusing you of anything. I was just asking. Well, it sounded like an accusation. Another fight. Another night of sleeping with our backs to each other. The wedding was 3 weeks away. The discovery. I found the emails by accident. Liam had asked me to forward him a work document from his laptop while he was in the shower. I opened his email, searched for the document, and that's when I saw it. Emma. Who is she, Liam? He sat down on the edge of the bed, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. She's my ex-wife. The words hung in the air like smoke. Your ex-wife. I repeated, my voice hollow. You were married before. Yes. And you never thought to mention this? I was going to tell you. There never seemed to be a right time. How about on our first date? Or when you proposed? Or any of the hundreds of conversations we've had about our pasts? My voice was rising, getting shrill. You told me about your dad, your childhood, your irrational fear of pigeons. But you forgot to mention you were married? I didn't forget. I actively chose not to tell you because I knew you'd react exactly like this. Like what? Like a person who's upset their fiancé has been lying to them for a year. I wasn't lying. I just didn't tell you everything. That's literally what lying by omission is, Liam. He stood up, started pacing. Melissa and I got married young. Too young. We were 23, thought we were in love, thought we could make it work. We couldn't. We divorced amicably and stayed friends. That's all there is to it. If that's all there is to it, why did she email you 2 weeks ago saying you're making a mistake marrying me? His jaw clenched. You read my emails? Don't turn this around on me. You asked me to use your laptop, to forward a document, not to snoop through my personal correspondence. Answer the question, Liam. Why does your ex-wife think you're making a mistake? He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, defeated. Because she still has feelings for me. She has for a while, but I don't feel the same way. I love you, Emma. Not her. Did you see her in Vegas? Another pause. Another confirmation of my worst fears. She was there. She wanted to talk, to try to convince me not to get married. I told her no. I told her I was committed to you. You should have told me she'd be there. I didn't know she'd be there. She just showed up. I stood up, needing to move, needing air. I can't believe this. We're supposed to get married in 3 weeks, and I'm just now finding out you have an ex-wife who's still in love with you and actively trying to break us up. She's not trying to break us up. She's just confused. She'll get over it. Will she? Because those emails suggest otherwise. Liam grabbed my hands, trying to make me look at him. Emma, please. I should have told you about Melissa. I know that, but I didn't because my marriage to her is so far in my past that it doesn't feel relevant to my future with you. She's not a threat to us. I pulled my hands away. Everything feels like a threat right now. I feel like I don't even know you. You do know me. You know the real me. The me that matters. No, Liam. I know the version of you that you chose to show me. That's not the same thing. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Where are you going? I need space. I need to think. Emma, please don't leave. We can work through this. Can we? Because right now, I don't even know what we is. I left, ignoring his calls, his texts. I went to Rachel's apartment and cried for 3 hours straight. The unraveling. The next few days were torture. Liam called constantly, texted, even showed up at my office with flowers and apologies. Patricia called too, begging me to talk to her son, saying that everyone makes mistakes. But I couldn't think straight. Every conversation we'd ever had felt tainted now. Had he lied about other things? What else didn't I know? I did something I probably shouldn't have. I contacted Melissa. I found her on social media. She was a graphic designer living in Boston. Pretty, artistic. Exactly the kind of woman Liam would fall for. I sent her a message. This is Emma, Liam's fiancée. Can we talk? She responded within an hour. I wondered if you'd reach out. Yes, we should talk. We arranged a video call. Melissa's face appeared on my screen, warm eyes, genuine smile. None of the malice I'd expected from the other woman. Thank you for being willing to talk to me, I said. Of course. I owe you honesty, even if Liam hasn't given you that courtesy. How long were you married? 3 years. We met in college, got married right after graduation. It was passionate and intense and ultimately unsustainable. We wanted different things. I wanted to travel, explore, keep my independence. Liam wanted stability, family, roots. We fought constantly. Why did you stay in touch? She sighed. Because despite everything, we cared about each other. The divorce wasn't bitter. We just recognized we weren't right together. We stayed friends. But over the years, I realized I'd made a mistake. That I'd let a good man go because I was too young to appreciate what I had. And now? Now I see him making the same mistakes with you that he made with me. Moving too fast. Not communicating about the important stuff. Trying to force a perfect relationship instead of building a real one. Her words hit hard because they rang true. Do you still love him? I asked. Part of me probably always will. But I'm not trying to steal him from you, Emma. I'm trying to save you both from a mistake. Liam is a good man, but he's terrified of being alone. After his dad died, he became his mom's whole world, and the pressure of being someone's everything messed him up. He rushes into relationships because he can't stand the uncertainty. He told me he was sure about us. I'm sure he was. In the moment. Liam is always sure in the moment. It's the long term he struggles with. After we hung up, I felt more confused than ever. Melissa hadn't said anything cruel or manipulative. She just confirmed my deepest fears that Liam and I had built our relationship on intensity instead of foundation. The confrontation. I finally agreed to meet Liam at a coffee shop, neutral ground. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, rumpled clothes. It almost broke my resolve. "Thank you for seeing me," he said, his voice hoarse. I talked to Melissa. His eyes widened. "You what?" I needed to hear her side of the story. She told me about your marriage, about why it ended, about why she thinks we're making a mistake. Liam's jaw tightened. She has no right to interfere in our relationship. She wasn't interfering. She was being honest, which is more than I can say for you. That's not fair, isn't it? Liam, we're supposed to get married in 2 weeks. TWO weeks. And I just found out you were married before. What else haven't you told me? He was quiet, which was answer enough. There's more, isn't there? My heart sank. It's not a big deal. Let me decide that. What is it? He took a deep breath. I'm in debt. About $80,000 in debt from my previous marriage. Melissa and I bought a condo together, and when we divorced, I took on the mortgage to buy her out. I'm still paying it off. I stared at him, incredulous. $80,000? And you never thought to mention this when we were arguing about wedding finances? I didn't want you to worry about it. I'm handling it. How? How are you handling it? I have a payment plan. It's under control. Is that why you wanted to pay for the wedding yourself? Because you're trying to prove you're financially stable when you're actually drowning in debt. I'm not drowning. I'm managing. By hiding it from your future wife. The conversation went in circles. Every answer he gave raised new questions. Had he been honest about his job? Mostly. But he'd exaggerated his success. About his relationship with his mom? She'd helped him financially after the divorce, which he'd failed to mention. About his plans for the future. Vague hopes rather than concrete plans. I feel like I don't know you at all, I said finally. The person I fell in love with was open and honest and present. But that person was a performance, wasn't it? No. Emma, I love you. Everything I felt for you is real. Maybe the feelings are real, but the foundation isn't. We built this relationship so fast that we never stopped to make sure we were building it right. And now it's all falling apart because we never bothered with the blueprint. So what are you saying? You want to cancel the wedding? The question hung between us. Did I? I'm saying we need to postpone it. We need time to actually figure out who we are together when we're not high on new relationship energy. Postpone? Emma, we have 2 weeks. Everyone is coming. My mom has been planning this for months. Your mom's happiness is not a good enough reason to get married, Liam. He looked stricken. What about our happiness? Doesn't that matter? Of course it does. But we can't be happy together if we don't trust each other. And right now, I don't trust you. The decision. The next 2 weeks were chaos. I told Patricia first. She cried but ultimately understood. The vendors were notified. Guests were called. Deposits were lost. Liam moved out of our apartment temporarily, staying with a friend to give me space. Rachel was relieved. I know this hurts now, but you're doing the right thing. Then why does it feel so wrong? Because you love him. But love isn't enough if there's no trust or communication. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the constant ache in my chest. But everything reminded me of Liam. The coffee shop where we'd had our second date. The park where we'd walked. The sunflower he'd given me, now dried and pressed in a book. Then, 3 weeks after I called off the wedding, Liam showed up at my office again. But this time, he looked different. Calmer. More settled. Can we talk? He asked. Really talk, I mean. No deflections, no hiding. Complete honesty. We went back to that same coffee shop where we'd had our confrontation. I've been seeing a therapist, Liam said. Something I should have done years ago. We've been talking about my patterns, about why I rush into relationships, about my fear of abandonment. And what have you figured out? That Melissa was right. I do move too fast. After my dad died, I became terrified of being alone. So I grabbed onto relationships, tried to force them to be perfect, convinced myself I was sure when I was really just desperate. It hurt to hear, but I appreciated the honesty. I was unfair to you, he continued. I pushed for marriage before we'd even figured out the basics. I hid important things because I was scared you'd leave if you knew the real me. And in doing that, I guaranteed you'd eventually leave anyway. I didn't leave, I said softly. I just paused. I know, and I'm grateful for that, because it gave me the space to realize I need to work on myself before I can be the partner you deserve. What does that mean? It means I'm not asking you to marry me. Not right now. I'm asking if we can start over. Like, really start over. First date level. Getting to know each other honestly, without the pressure of a timeline or a perfect relationship narrative. I looked at him, really looked. There was vulnerability in his eyes, but also determination. He'd done work on himself in these few weeks. Real work. I need complete honesty, I said. About everything. Your past, your finances, your fears, all of it. You'd have it. And we'd need to go slow. Like, actually slow. None of this moving in together after 4 months stuff. I understand. And couples therapy. Non-negotiable. Already looking into therapists. I felt something in my chest unfold slightly. Hope, maybe. Okay, I said. We can try. But Liam, if you hide things from me again, I won't. I promise. No more performances. No more perfect boyfriend act. Just meet messy and complicated and in debt and trying to be better. That's all I ever wanted. The rebuilding. Starting over was strange. We went on actual dates again, but different ones. No grand romantic gestures, just simple activities. Museums, book readings, cooking classes. We talked, really talked, about everything. Liam told me about his first marriage in detail. The good parts. They laughed a lot, traveled together, supported each other's dreams. And the bad parts. Constant fighting about money, about commitment levels, about what they wanted from life. He told me about the debt, about how embarrassed he'd been, about the payment plan he'd set up, and how it would take 3 more years to clear. I told him about my mom's death in more detail than I ever had, about the guilt I felt for leaving Ohio, for not being there more in her final months, about my fear of abandonment, which mirrored his own, about my tendency to throw myself into relationships to avoid processing grief. We're both kind of a mess, I said one night as we walked through Brooklyn Bridge Park. Yeah, Liam agreed, but at least we're honest messes now. Couples therapy was hard. Our therapist, Dr. Chen, didn't let us off easy. She made us talk about our fights, our triggers, our expectations. She helped us see how we'd both contributed to the breakdown. Me by not asking harder questions earlier. Him by not volunteering difficult truths. Trust is built through repeated small actions, Dr. Chen said during one session. Not grand gestures. Can you commit to being consistently honest, even when it's uncomfortable? Yes, we both said. And slowly, carefully, we rebuilt. 3 months passed. Then 6. We moved back in together. But this time we did it deliberately, discussing boundaries and expectations first. We created a shared budget, including Liam's debt in our planning. We met each other's friends properly, not just in passing, but in depth. I met Melissa in person at month 7. It was Liam's idea. I don't want there to be secrets or weird tension, he said. You two should know each other. We met for lunch in Boston. It was awkward at first, but Melissa was warm and genuine. She apologized for the email, for interfering. I was projecting my own regrets onto your relationship, she said. That wasn't fair. You two are different than Liam and I were. How so? I asked. You actually communicate, even when it's messy. Liam and I never did that. We just floated along until we crashed. By the end of lunch, I understood why Liam had cared about her. She was smart and kind and self-aware. And I could also see why they hadn't worked. They wanted fundamentally different things. Take care of him, Melissa said as we hugged goodbye. He's a good manual. I will. And thank you for being honest with me when I needed it. The second proposal. It happened on the 1-year anniversary of our do-over. We'd taken a trip upstate, renting a small cabin by a lake. No cell service, no distractions, just us. We were sitting on the dock, watching the sunset paint the water in oranges and pinks, when Liam said, I want to ask you something, but I'm nervous. My heart started racing. Okay. This past year has been the hardest and best year of my life. Hard because I had to face a lot of uncomfortable truths about myself. Best because I got to do it with you by my side. You've seen me at my worst, lying, hiding, scared, and you didn't run away. You just asked me to do better. He pulled out a small box. Inside was a different ring, simpler than the first one, a single diamond on a plain gold band. I know we said we'd take things slow, and I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow or next month or even this year. But I am asking if you'll marry me eventually, when we're both ready, when we've built something so solid that we can't imagine anything shaking it. Tears were streaming down my face. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you eventually. He slipped the ring on my finger, and we sat there as the sun disappeared below the horizon, holding each other. Thank you, he whispered, for giving me a second chance. Thank you for earning it. The wedding. We got married 18 months later in a small ceremony at Brooklyn Botanic Garden. Just 50 people, close friends and family. Rachel was my maid of honor. Patricia cried through the whole thing. The ceremony was simple. No elaborate scavenger hunts. No grand gestures. Just honest vows we'd written ourselves. Liam's vows. Emma, I promise to never hide from you again. To tell you the hard truths even when they scare me. To build our life together one honest conversation at a time. I promise to choose you every day. Not just in the exciting beginning, but in the boring middle and the challenging end. I love you not because you're perfect, but because you see my imperfections and love me anyway. My vows. Liam, I promise to ask the hard questions, to not settle for surface when I need depth, to be patient with your process while still holding you accountable. I promise to build our life together on a foundation of truth, even when truth is uncomfortable. I love you not in spite of our messy beginning, but because of what we've become through it. As we kissed, I felt something I hadn't felt the first time we'd planned a wedding. Certainty. Not the giddy, naive certainty of new love, but the deeper, harder-won certainty of knowing someone fully and choosing them anyway. At the reception, Patricia gave a toast. When Liam first told me he was going to marry Emma, I was thrilled. When they called it off, I was heartbroken. But now, watching them today, I understand why they needed that time. Real love isn't about perfect moments. It's about choosing to show up for the imperfect ones. To my son and my new daughter, may you continue choosing honesty over ease, truth over comfort, and each other over everything. Rachel pulled me aside during the dancing. You did it, she said. You actually made it work. We did, I corrected. Both of us. Together. I'm proud of you, not for getting married, but for knowing when to pause. That takes guts. As the night wound down, Liam and I snuck away to a quiet corner of the garden. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we'd gone through with the first wedding? I asked. Sometimes. I think we'd have been happy for a while, but eventually, all those hidden truths would have surfaced, and we wouldn't have had the tools to handle them. So you think calling it off was the right choice? I think it was the only choice. We needed to fall apart so we could learn how to come back together the right way. He pulled me close, and we swayed to the distant music. I married the first guy I met, I said, smiling. Technically, you married him twice, Liam corrected. Good point. I married the first guy I met, broke up with him, dated him properly, and then married him again. Quite a story. The best stories usually are complicated. 5 years later, 5 years into our marriage, we were sitting in Dr. Chen's office again. Not for crisis therapy this time, but for a check-in. We tried to see her every 6 months, just to keep ourselves honest. How are things? She asked. Good, I said. Really good, actually. We're thinking about trying for a baby. That's a big step. How are you feeling about it? Liam and I looked at each other. We'd spent the last 3 months talking about this, really talking. About our fears, his being a good father, mine, losing my identity. About our hopes, his teaching someone to build things, mine, giving someone the childhood I did before my mom got sick. About the logistics, finances, childcare, career impacts. Terrified, Liam admitted, but also excited. And this time, we're going into it with our eyes open. That's all anyone can do, Dr. Chen said. You've both come a long way. After the session, we walked through Park Slope, past the brownstone where Patricia still lived. She'd recently started dating someone, a retired professor named Walter who made her laugh and didn't mind that she was opinionated and bossy. Your mom seems happy, I said. She does. I think she finally stopped worrying about me so much. Because you married well. Because I learned to be honest about my struggles instead of hiding them. Turns out that's what she wanted all along. Not a perfect son, just an authentic one. We stopped at the corner of a familiar street. This is where you first met me, I said. Best accident of my life, Liam said, repeating words he'd said years ago. You know what I realized recently? I said. I used to think our story was a whirlwind romance, but it's not. It's a choose-your-own adventure story where we chose wrong at first, but then we chose to choose again. That's very meta. I'm a marketing director. Meta is kind of my thing. He kissed me there on the street corner, where our story had started with spilled coffee and apologies. We'd come full circle, but we were different people now. Not perfect, not without struggles, but honest and committed and still choosing each other. Do you ever regret it? Liam asked. The mess of our beginning? Never. The mess taught us how to clean up together. That's worth more than a perfect start. As we walked home, hand in hand, I thought about the girl I'd been when I first met Liam. She'd been looking for someone to save her from loneliness, to fill the hole her mother's death had left. She'd thought love was supposed to be easy and overwhelming and certain. Now, I knew better. Love was showing up when things were hard. Love was telling the truth even when it hurt. Love was choosing to rebuild when it would have been easier to walk away. I'd married the first guy I met, but more importantly, I learned who I was in the process. And that, the becoming, the struggling, the choosing, that was the real love story. The end.